Hi guys, in this video I'm going to share with you how to create this very simple neutral makeup look which I did for a simple weekend day out. As you can see, I was filling myself in this shot and we will get right into it with this Too Faced Shadow Insurance Eyeshadow Primer. This is a primer that's a cult favorite and it's really good. This is a sample I got from the Christmas edition long time ago and it works perfectly. It doesn't have any color or anything, but it's a good base to allow those shadows to stick to it. This is the palette I'm using today. It's a Soap and Glory Kick Into Neutral palette, and I'm using this sort of neutral matte grayish tone color to create a crease onto my eye. So as you can see, my eye is quite one dimension. It doesn't have any contours or hollowness to it, so I'm just kind of creating some shape to it. This color, the palette in general, I think is a little bit cool toned, and it did come out a little bit more ashy than what I'm used to, but I'm just using a circular motion with a blending brush just on the crease right there. Moving on to a deeper shade of that tone. This one has a little bit of sparkles to it, but I use this MAC 217 brush to create an inverted V into the outer crease of my eyes. So I'm actually just packing the color, putting that into the 3/4 outer corners of my eyes and kind of pulling that back down to the lids, but also kind of creating that inverted V outside. So think of it as an extended cat wing, but using your shadows instead. So just blending and blending it into the lower part of that crease color to just make it a little bit more defined. The color is quite buildable, so you could actually just make it as dark as you want it to be, and remember to stop and check that both eyes are equal. And then this is a clean blending brush from Sigma. This is one of my favorite brushes, and with no color on it, I'm just using it to blend the shadows or whatever that I have on there upwards. This will just prevent that any stark colors like the one that you see right there. I'm just blending it out so that it doesn't look too awkward. And then this is the darkest shade in the palette. I'm taking a very pointed brush and I'm placing it right above, like I'm feeling where my eyeballs are, and I'm placing it right there. And I'm placing it in such a way that when I open up my eyelids or when I barely close or barely open them, you can kind of still see the dark crease right there. So I'm not really blending it in any way. I'm placing it and spreading it out horizontally. So the same for the left eye, and it just stops right where that shadow wing actually happens. So just opening the eyes and checking that the crease looks fine before moving on to the brow bone color. This is the lightest shade in the palette. It's a gorgeous frosty white color. I'm just putting that very gently right underneath the highest point of my brow. So all the colors in this palette are actually quite sparkly. So I think the only one was that first color that I used. So this lid color, I actually wetted my brush and I placed it right onto the lids right beneath where the cut crease was. And as you can see, the color is just gorgeous. It's like it's coming out really, really, really nicely when it's wet. So I'm just putting that. I think this is a very nice contrast to whatever colors that was on there previously. This eyeliner is by K Palettes. It's a Korean brand and I absolutely love it. It is one of my go-to fail-proof liners. As you can see, I am starting to get a lot of lines on my eyes, one of the effects of aging, but this liner, it just keeps everything very clean. As you can see, it just glides really, really smoothly onto my eyes. I'm just creating a very tiny wing right there. And that concludes the eye look, the neutral eyes, and we move on to the face. So before anything, I'm putting on a primer. This is the Hourglass Veil Primer. I think that's what it's called. I got it as a sample, but I ended up loving it a lot. So it's just a very, very luxurious feeling primer, and when you blend it onto your face, everything just feels really, really smooth. So just putting this on to make sure that my foundation stays onto my skin, especially on my oily skin. This concealer is by Collection, and they used to have it in Singapore, but I haven't seen it around in a while, so I'm not sure whether they still sell it. So I'm putting it onto like my under eye, wherever I want it to be a little bit more highlighted. I'm using this very fancy brush which I got. It's an interesting way of applying, and I do feel that it tends to drag my skin a little bit, especially underneath my eyes. But this was just a no brand brush that I got, and it worked fine. So I usually like to put concealer on before my foundation just so that I could blend it all very nicely. So this foundation is one of my favorite Holy Grail foundations. It's the Giorgio Armani Luminous Silk Foundation. I'm in the shade number 8, and it just gives a very natural finish to my skin. Even though it says luminous, it doesn't necessarily give like a too shiny type of look. It's actually quite, it can be quite matte once you blot it once in a while, but I just love the fact that it's super flawless and it's very natural looking. So this concealer, it's a 3-in-1 product. I start off by the cream contour that's here. So I'm just applying it with my finger and cutting it right in the middle of my cheekbones. I do again find this color a little bit ashy. I think it's very cool toned. I feel like this brand was probably more created for people with cooler tones. I'm using another one of these fancy brushes, this time the face brush, and trying my best to just blend that upwards. This is the cream blush. It's very, very light. I don't know whether it's doing anything for my skin. It's very, very pale pink, but I'm just putting that on top of the concealer. You can, sorry, on top of the contour, but you can see that the contour shows up actually quite nicely, but I'm not sure about the blush. Just using a beauty blender to blend that out. So it gives a very natural look to it. And then moving on to the pressed powder. So this is my everyday MAC Mineralized Skin Finish pressed powder, which I use to just set everything down. So everything that I've used before this was cream, right? So you need to use some kind of powder to set everything, and that's not enough. So I used another powder. This is the MAC Mystery Sheer powder. It's just a pressed powder which I use to set everything to make sure that they don't go anywhere. So finishing it off, part of that little cheek palette is also, oh, I'm actually putting on more blusher. I thought I was on to highlight, but a little bit more blusher. Not sure if it's doing anything. And the husband makes an appearance to this video. He's very excited about this particular look, as you can see. And then I'm going to take that white highlight, it is literally white, and putting it right on top, right underneath my eyes right there. And I'm using this dual fiber brush, which I really love to blend out any cream products on my cheeks. And this brush is by Real Technique. So I'm just putting it under my eyes and just slightly on top, right next to my brow. So it gives a really, really nice, soft, subtle highlight. I think this shows up pretty well. So other than the blush, I think I quite like the highlights and the contour of this palette. I think it shows up really, really nicely. As you can see there, I was quite happy. This little eyeliner here is by Rimmel, and it's just a cream colored eyeliner. I'm doing this thing because I just wanted to try something new, and it apparently allows your eyes to look a lot bigger when you put on this sort of colors on your lower lids. This mascara is by Giorgio Armani. It's the Eyes to Kill mascara. Apparently it's very famous. I personally do not see what the big deal is about. I have very, very little lashes, as you can see there, but I think I've put like 2 to 3 coats of this, but it didn't really do much. This is the final product. I mean, yeah, it is what it is. It's not like fantastic or anything. So okay, moving on to the last piece of the puzzle. This is Fenty Beauty's Matte Moselle lipstick. This is in the color Spanked, and I've mentioned this a couple of times on YouTube and on Instagram. that this particular color, it's not really matte, it's actually more creamy, sets creamy matte. So the color itself is actually quite gorgeous, but I was just hoping for a more matte finish. So this is a reddish rusty color. Very, very carefully applying there for some reason, taking my time. Yep, okay, I look like I like what I see. And yeah, that's basically the entire look, as you can see there. Fussing with my hair a little bit, and yeah, it was just a quick, easy weekend look. I hope you guys enjoyed that. If you did, don't forget to thumbs up, and I will see you guys in my next video. When will this end? Okay, it's gonna end soon. Okay, bye.